Hello, and welcome to Ms. PM Reads Christian Content, where we are continuing in All's for the Best by T.S. Arthur. And in our last video, we are still hearing Mary the seamstress, her story of ill health and perhaps improper employment treatment. I think this will conclude Mary's story in this video. Okay. Of the particulars of his treatment, we will not speak. Okay, so they called the doctor in, and it's pleurisy, a very severe attack. Okay. He was of the exhaustive school and took blood freely, striking at the inflammation through a reduction of the vital system. When he left his patient that night, she was free from pain, breathing feebly and without constriction of the chest. In the morning, he found her with considerable fever and suffering from a return of the pleuritic pain. Her pulse was low and quick and had a wiry thrill under the fingers. Sorry, little bug here. The doctor had taken blood very freely on the night before and hesitated a little on the question of opening another vein or having recourse to cups. As the lancet was at hand and most easy of use, the vein was opened and permitted to flow until there was a reduction of pain. After this, an anodyne diaphoretic was prescribed, and the doctor retired from the chamber with Mrs. Grant. He was more particular now in his inquiries about his patient and the immediate cause of her illness. On learning that she had been permitted to remain all day in a cold room with wet, damp feet and clothing, he shook his head soberly and remarked, partly speaking to himself, that doctors were not of much use in suicide or murder cases. Then he asked abruptly and with considerable excitement of manner, in heaven's name, who's permitted this thing to be done? In what family did it occur? The lady for whom she worked yesterday is named Mrs. Lowe. Mrs. Lowe? Yes, sir. And she permitted that delicate girl to sit in wet clothing in a room without a fire on a day like yesterday? It is so, doctor. Then I call Mrs. Lowe a murderer. The doctor spoke with excessive feeling. Do you think Mary is so very ill, doctor? Asked Mrs. Grant. I do, ma'am. She is free of pain now. So she was when I left her last night, and I expected to find her showing marked improvement this morning. But to my concern, I find her really worse instead of better. Worse, doctor, not worse. I say worse to you, Mrs. Grant, in order that you may know how much depends on careful attendance. Send for the medicine I have prescribed at once and give it immediately. It will quiet her system and produce sleep. If perspiration follows, we shall be on the right side. I will call in again through the day. If the pain in her side returns, send for me. The pain did return, and the doctor was summoned. He feared to strike his lancet again, but cupped freely over the right side, thus gaining for the suffering girl a measure of relief. She lay after this in a kind of stupor for some hours. On coming out of this, she no longer had the lancinating pain in her side with every expansion of the lungs, but instead a dull pain, attended by a cough and tightness of the chest. The cough was, at first, dry, unsatisfactory, and attended with anxiety. Then came a tough mucus, a little streaked with blood. The expectoration soon became freer and assumed a brownish hue. A low fever accompanied these bad symptoms. The case had become complicated with pneumonia, and assumed a very dangerous type. On the third day, a consulting physician was called in. He noted all the symptoms carefully and with a serious of manner that did not escape the watchful eyes of Mrs. Grant. He passed but few words with the attendant physician, and their exact meaning was veiled by medical terms. But Mrs. Grant understood enough to satisfy her that little hope of a favorable issue was entertained. About this time of this consultation over the case of Mary Carson was in progress, it happened that Mrs. Wyckoff received another visit from Mrs. Lowe. "I've called," said the latter, speaking in a tone of voice of one who felt annoyed, "to ask where that sewing girl you recommend to me lives." "Miss Carson?" "Yes, I believe that is her name." "Didn't she come by on Monday, according to appointment?" "Oh, yes, she came, but I've seen nothing of her since." "Ah, is that so? She may be sick." The voice of Mrs. Wyckoff dropped to a shade of seriousness. "Let me see. Monday. Didn't it rain?" "Yes, now I remember. It was a dreadful day. Perhaps she took cold. She's very delicate. Did she get wet in coming to your house?" "I'm sure I don't know." There was a slight indication of annoyance on the part of Mrs. Lowe. It was impossibly, raining and blowing as it did, for her to escape wet feet, if not drenched clothing. Was there a fire in the room where she worked? "Fire? No. We don't have grates or stoves in any of our rooms." "Oh, then there was a fire in the heater?" "We never make a fire in the heater before November," answered Mrs. Lowe with the manner of one who felt annoyed. Mrs. Wyckoff mused for some moments. "Excuse me," she said, "for asking such minute questions, but I know Miss Carson's extreme delicacy, and I am fearful that she is sick as the result of a cold. Did you notice her when she came in on Monday morning?" "Yes, I was standing in the hall when the servant admitted her. She came rather late." "Did she go immediately to the room where she was to work?" "Yes." "You are sure she didn't go into the kitchen and dry her feet?" "She went upstairs as soon as she came in." "Did you go up with her?" "Yes." "Excuse me, Mrs. Lowe," said Mrs. Wyckoff, who saw that these questions were chafing her visitor, "for pressing my inquiries so closely. I am much concerned at the fact of her absence from your house since Monday. Did she change any of her clothing, take off her stockings, for instance, and put on dry ones?" "Nothing of the kind." "But sat in her wet shoes and stockings all day?" "I don't know that they were wet, Mrs. Wyckoff," said the lady with contracting brows. "Could you have walked 6 or 7 squares in the face of Monday's driving storm, Mrs. Lowe, and escaped wet feet?" "Of course not. Your stockings would have been wet halfway to the knees, and your skirts also." There was a growing excitement about Mrs. Wyckoff, united with an air of so much seriousness that Mrs. Lowe began to feel a pressure of alarm. Selfish, cold-hearted, and indifferent to all in a social grade beneath her, this lady was not quite ready to stand up in the world's face as one without common humanity. The way in which Mrs. Wyckoff was presenting the case of Miss Carson on that stormy morning did not reflect very credibility upon her. And the thought, "How would this sound if told of me?" did not leave her in the most comfortable frame of mind. "I hope she's not sick. I'm sure the thought of her being wet never crossed my mind. Why didn't she speak of it herself? She knew her own condition and that there was a fire in the kitchen. I declare, some people act in a manner perfectly incomprehensible." Mrs. Lowe spoke now in a disturbed manner. "Miss Carson should have looked to this herself, and she was wrong in not doing so. Very wrong," said Mrs. Wyckoff. "But she is shrinking and sensitive to a fault, afraid of giving trouble or intruding herself." And then it says in italics, It is our place, I think, when strangers come into our house, no matter under what circumstances, to assume that they have a natural delicacy about asking for needed considerations, and to see that all things due to them are tendered. That's still within the quotes. Okay, so she must have said it out loud. I thought maybe she was just thinking it. I cannot see that any exceptions to this rule are admissible. To my thinking, it applies to a servant, a seamstress, or a guest, each in just a degree, with equal force. Now that I'm blameless in this thing, far from it, but I acknowledge my fault whenever it is seen, and repenting, resolve to act more humanely in the future. Where does Miss Carson live? Asked Mrs. Lowe. I came to make the inquiry. As I feel rather troubled about her, answered Miss Wyckoff, I will go to see her this afternoon. I wish you would. What you have said makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I hope there is nothing wrong, or at least that she is only slightly indisposed. It was thoughtless in me, but I was so much interested in the work she was doing that I never once thought of her personally. Did she come for breakfast? Oh, yes. Excuse me, but what time did she get her breakfast? There was just a little shrinking in the manner of Mrs. Wyckoff as she answered, towards 9 o'clock. Did she eat anything? Well, no, not much in particular. I thought her a little dainty. She took coffee, but it just didn't appear to suit her appetite. Then I offered her tea and she drank a cup, but didn't take any solid food. Very little. She struck me as dainty, miss. She is weak and delicate, Mrs. Lowe, as anyone who looks into her face may see. Did you give her a lunch towards noon? A lunch? Why, no. Mrs. Lowe elevated her brows. How late was it when she took dinner? 3 o'clock. Did she eat heartily? I didn't notice her particularly. She was at the table for only a few minutes. Oh my, and we're going to stop. I thought we were going to finish it. Ugh, well, you want to finish it? Let's finish. Okay, because it's just conversation. It'll go quickly. Okay. I fear for the worst, said Mrs. Wyckoff. If Mary Carson sat all day on Monday in damp clothes, wet feet, and without taking a sufficient quantity of nourishing food, I wouldn't give much for her life. Mrs. Lowe gathered her shawl around her and arose to depart. There was a cloud on her face. You will see Miss Carson today, she said. Oh, yes. At what time do you think of going? I shall not be able to leave home before late in the afternoon, say 4 o'clock. Not earlier than 4:30? Mrs. Lowe stood for some moments with the air of one who hesitated about doing something. Will you call for me? Her voice was slightly depressed. Certainly. What you have said troubles me. I'm sure I didn't mean to be unkind. It was thoughtlessness altogether. I hope she is not ill. I'll leave my home at 4:30, said Mrs. Wyckoff. It isn't over 10 minutes walk to your house. You'll find me all ready. Oh, dear. And Mrs. Lowe withdrew a long, sighing breath. I hope she didn't take cold at my house. I hope nothing serious will grow out of it. I wouldn't have anything of this kind happen for the world. People are so uncharitable. If it should get out, I would be talked about dreadfully, and I'm sure the girl is a great deal more to blame than I am. Why didn't she see to it that her feet and clothes were dried before she sat down to her work? Mrs. Wyckoff did not answer. Mrs. Lowe stood for a few moments waiting for some exculpatory suggestion, but Mrs. Wyckoff had none to offer. Good morning. You'll find me all ready when you call. Good morning. And the ladies parted. Ah, Mrs. Lowe, how are you this morning? A street meeting 10 minutes later. Right well, how are you? Well, as usual, I just called at your house. Ah, indeed. Come, go back again. No, thank you. I've several calls to make this morning, but do you know there's a strange story afloat about a certain lady of your acquaintance? Of my acquaintance? Yes, a lady with whom you are very, very intimate. What is it? There was a little anxiety mixed with the curious air of Mrs. Lowe. Something about murdering a sewing girl. What? Mrs. Lowe started as if she'd received a blow. A frightened look came into her face. But there isn't anything in it, of course, said the friend in considerable astonishment at the effect produced on Mrs. Lowe. Tell me just what you have heard, said the latter. You mean me by the lady of your intimate acquaintance? Yes, the talk is about you. It came from Dr. somebody, I don't know whom. He's attending the girl. What is said? I wish to know. Don't keep back anything on account of my feelings. I shall know as it is truth or falsehood, and true or false, it is better that I should stand fully advised. A seamstress came to work for me on Monday. It was a stormy day, you know. Took cold from wet feet and is now very ill. That much I know. It might have happened at your house or your neighbor's without legitimate blame lying against either of you. Now, out of this simple fact, what dreadful report is circulated to my injury? As I have said, don't keep anything back. The story, replied the friend, is that she walked for half a mile before breakfast in the face of that terrible northeast storm and came to you with feet soaking and skirts wet to the knees, and that you put her to work in this condition in a cold room and suffered her to sit in her wet garments all day, that in consequence she went home sick when attacked with pleurisy in the evening, which soon ran into acute pneumonia, and that she is now dying. The doctor, who told my friend, called it murder and said without hesitation that you were a murderer. Dying? Did he say that she was dying? Yes, ma'am. The doctor said that you might as well have put a pistol ball through her head. Me? Yes, you. Those were her words, or those were his words, as repeated by my friend. Who is the friend to whom you refer? Mrs. T. And without a word of injury as to the degree of blame referable to me, she repeats this wholesale charge to my injury. Verily, that is Christian charity. I suggest caution on her part and started to see you at once. Then she did sit in her wet clothes all day at your house? I don't know whether she did or not, replied Mrs. Lowe fretfully. She was of woman's age and competent to take care of herself. If she came in wet, she knew it, and there was fire in the house at which she could have dried herself. Even a half-witted person started from home on a morning like that and expecting to be absent all day would have provided herself with dry stockings and slippers for a change. If the girl dies from cold taken on that occasion, it must be set down to suicide, not murder. I may have been thoughtless, but I am not responsible. I am sorry for her, but I cannot take blame to myself. The same thing might have happened in your house. It might have happened in other houses than yours, Mrs. Lowe, I will admit, was replied, but I do not think it would have happened in mine. I was once a seamstress myself, and for nearly 2 years went out to work in families. What I experienced during those 2 years has made me considerate toward all who come into my house in that capacity. Many who are compelled to earn a living with the needle were once in better condition than now, and the changes touched them of some rather sharply. In some families, they are treated with a thoughtful kindness, in strong contrast with what they receive in other families. If sensitive and retiring, they learn to be very chary about asking for anything beyond what is conceded and bear rather than suggest or complain. I've no patience with that kind of sensitiveness, replied Mrs. Lowe. It's simply ridiculous, and not only ridiculous, but wrong. If every sewing girl who comes into your house to be treated like an honored guest, we are in no danger of erring, Mrs. Lowe, was answered, on the side of considerate kindness, even to sewing women. They are human and have wants and weaknesses and bodily conditions that as imperatively demand a timely and just regard as those of the most honored guests who may sojourn with us. And what is more, as I hold, we cannot omit our duty either to the one or the other and be blameless. But I must hurry on. Good morning, Mrs. Lowe. Good morning, was coldly responded, and the two ladies parted. We advance the time a few hours. It is nearly sundown, and the slant beams are coming in through the partly raised blinds and falling on the bed, where, white and panting for short-coming breath, lies Mary Carson, a little raised by pillows against which her head rests, motionless. Her eyes are shut, the brown lashes lying in two deep fringes on her cheeks. Away from her temples and forehead, the hair has been smoothly brushed by loving hands, and there is a spiritual beauty in her face that is suggestive of heaven. Mrs. Grant is on one side of the bed and the physician on the other. Both are gazing intently on the sick girl's face. The door opens and two ladies come in, noiselessly, Mrs. Lowe and Mrs. Wyckoff. They are strangers there to all but Mary Carson, and she has passed too far on the journey homeward for mortal recognitions. Mrs. Grant moves a little back from the bed, and the two ladies stand in her place, leaning forward with half-suspended breathing. The almost classic beauty of Miss Carson's face, the exquisite cutting of every feature, the purity of its tone, are all at once so apparent to Mrs. Lowe that she gazes down, wonder and admiration mingling with awe and self-accusation. There is a slight convulsive cough with a fleeting spasm. The white lips are stained. Mrs. Lowe shudders. The stain is wiped off, and all is still as before. Now the slanting sun rays touch the pillows, close beside the white face, lighting it with a glory that seems not of this earth. They fade, and life fades with them, going out as they recede. With the last pencil of sunbeams passes the soul of Mary Carson. It is over. The physician breathes deeply and moves backward from the bed. Over with her, he adds, like one impelled by crowding thoughts to untimely utterance. The bills of mortality will say pneumonia. It were better written murder. Call it murder or suicide, as you will. Only, fair reader, see to it that responsibility in such a case lies never at your door. Wow. Okay. Well, that was a kind of a sad story on, how to be nice to people. Sign of the times when the story was written, that's for sure. All right, you guys. Well, we have a couple more videos to go. Our next one is titled, let's see if we can get on a happy note here. The Nursery Maid. Oh, that could be interesting too. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.